Talking Cougars is brought to you by Safeway. Come see what's fresh.
What's up? This is Talking Cougars, episode number 8. I'm Michael Bumpus with my QB Alex Brink. We got a fun one, man. I know we lost this game. Ole Miss went down south, lost 24-21, but our Cougs put up a heck of a fight, a better fight than I thought they were going to be able to put up. It was fun to watch. Brink, you were actually there, man. You felt the atmosphere. I saw you in the Grove, man. Tell me about that experience.
Dude, it was so cool, man. Yeah, I mean, it's true, man. It just means more down south. It feels like it is. The Grove is a cool place. The pregame in there and the tailgating, and everybody's all dressed up. The whole thing. I had these kind Ole Miss fans bring me into the tailgate. Got to share some Southern breakfast food at the tailgate, which was fantastic. I think the game day atmosphere was great. I mean, the stadium wasn't full, right? You saw the reports probably, Bump. Coug fans for most of the game, all 3,000 or 4,000 of them were actually louder than probably 55,000+ Ole Miss fans, I thought, at times. It was really cool to see the way the Washington State fan base showed up in a big way, and the team backed it up with a solid performance. Not a win, and there's no moral victories, but it was a really impressive showing.
You know what I like about this Cougar team is that every week they seem like they're improving, right? Especially after that North Texas loss. But every week they're getting better. And like you said, no moral victories, but you love to see progression. And, that's what it's all about. It's all about progression. So big ups to those Cougs. But let's talk about our offensive and defensive MVPs. Who you got on offense?
Yeah, it's got to be Kirby Voorhees. 10 carries, 88 yards, and 1 touchdown. He was electric the whole game, Bump. The Cougs established the running game for the second game in a row, rushing for over 100 yards, and most of it had to do with Voorhees. He had the big touchdown run. In general, I just thought his ability to put his foot in the ground and go north-south was a real difference in the running game. You've seen that over the past few weeks from him. Very decisive running the football. Also, shout out to the offensive line that's continued to get better. I mean, they played a really talented Ole Miss defensive line, and I thought at times it looked like the Cougar offensive line beat them up a little bit. So the running game was a real bright spot for me.
Yeah, I loved seeing the run game get going, especially that big run down the sideline for a touchdown. It's a tone setter. You actually play some physical football. You know, when you're trying to control a football game, you gotta be able to run the rock, and running the rock opens up everything else. So that's why my offensive MVP is Freeman. 92 yards, 1 touchdown. It seems like every week he's getting better and better. Only a long of 19, but he's consistent. You send him across the middle, he's good to go. You want to throw him a quick pass, he's good to go. So I think it's fitting that you talk about the run game, I talk about the pass game, because they both feed off each other. And then I would have to give an honorable mention to Zebby once again. Took care of the football, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. The offenses look pretty good.
Yeah, Zebby's been really consistent since he's taken over as the starter. Definitely, in my opinion, the reason this team looks like it's turned a corner a little bit, and hoping they can continue to improve week in and week out. The offense was really solid. I think in general they had a couple plays, Bump, that they left out there, probably both from our guys, unfortunately. Voorhees had the fumble on the direct snap on 3rd and 1. Tony Freeman had a drop on 3rd down early in the first half that I think would have put the Cougs into scoring position to go up by 2 possessions. So, I mean, just a couple possessions for Washington State. When you're playing a game, right, offensively, where you're shortening things, you're taking longer on the play clock, you're trying to keep the ball to the hands of the other team. You know what that also does? It keeps the ball out of your hands 1 or 2 less possessions, and you have to be very efficient. So, for Washington State's offense, a really solid showing, but I think there was a couple things out there defensively for me. Washington State, I thought, played really well. You're going against a team that averages over 40 points a game. We talked about the explosive quarterback in Trinidad Chambliss, running back Kewan Lacey. I mean, they have weapons all over the field, Bump, and I felt like the Washington State defense played well all night. Who was your defensive MVP?
Yeah, I'm going with big number 88, Isaac Terrell, 2 sacks. We knew going into this game, Chambliss was going to be a problem. They're going to zone read it, try to get him outside, run the QB delays, and he really makes his offense go. So for this young man to be able to get his paws on Chambliss twice, I think is huge. Chambliss never really looked comfortable back there. He did have a big, 25, 30-yard run. You knew he was going to make some sort of plays, but for the most part, the Cougs had him with his eyes down, and I think 88 Isaac Terrell was a big part of that. It starts on that defensive line and mess up their timing. I think for the most part, when you hold a team who averages 40 points to 24, your big's got to be doing something.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, I thought defensive line all night was, in the run game, they showed up at times. You mentioned Terrell and his ability to rush the passer, but I thought everybody put pressure on Chambliss. I mean, that was a big part of it. Getting Ole Miss into second and third and long and then getting pressure on him. He missed a bunch of throws that, to open receivers. And I think a lot of that had to do with the pressure. And, for Washington State's defensive line, they're down a bunch of guys. Max Balloon's hurt at defensive tackle. You saw a couple different guys get nicked up during the game. I mean, it was a hard-fought game, and I thought Terrell was really good. For me, it was safety Cale Reeder, who's kind of in the rotation as a backup starter, but he's a veteran coming from South Dakota State. 7 tackles, showed up in the running game a bunch. His speed on the perimeter really was important. And you know what was the biggest thing, Bump? He gets called for a targeting in the early second half, and I thought that was a huge difference because you had this rotation going of Tucker Large at safety, Matthew Durrance, Cale Reeder. You're able to stay really fresh on the back end, and eventually when Reeder goes out, you lose that depth, you lose the playmaking ability, and it felt like the Washington State defense got a little worn down because of how thin they are, and losing Reeder was a big part of that for me.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. It just feels different. I mean, guys are backups for reasons, and when you want to ride the hot hand when you have a guy in there. I was disappointed to see Reeder go out, but you know what? It's a call that the referees felt they had to make. You can debate that all you want to, but it is what it is. End of the day, we learned something about this football team, that they have a formula when it comes to traveling. That is a long trip, man. And for them to show up the way that they did in that environment, I think is encouraging, and it sets up next week.
Yeah, the biggest thing is they got to build off it, right, Bump? You can't kind of rest on the laurels of playing a close game against a good team. You got to build on it and gain some confidence. Jimmy Rogers, after the game, early in the week with his press conference, it sounds like he's saying the right things, right, to message this to the team, that they need to build on it, that close wins don't matter, right? Close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades, as they say, not in college football. So Washington State's got to take this, build on it as they head out to Virginia to play a top 25 ranked Virginia Cavaliers team. When we come back, we'll hear a little bit from head coach Jimmy Rogers and break down our play of the week. This segment is presented by Cougs First. Think Cougs First for products, services, and hiring.
Yeah, I think Zevi did a good job of taking checkdowns throughout the game, which allowed us to, those are just as good as a run. I think in the run game, there are a couple plays there that we applied the right technique and we climbed to the second level. And some of those bigger runs, Kirby was able to spring because of the blocking of the O-line and the proper technique used. And then there was, of course, the game where we kind of had the lull in the run game. Some of it's due to their talent and what they had done and their call against our offensive play call. There's plenty of things inside this game that we need to improve at that will lead to success later if we believe in it. And it's on the players as much as we harp on it to take that in and go out and execute. Overall, the effort, though, was awesome. And our belief that we can win, you could see it at the last, when they tried to get us to jump off sides on the fourth down play, just the energy that was on the sidelines. That's something that we haven't had yet this season. And I think that they felt that, and they're believing in the preparation in which it takes to have success long term.
This is Talking Cougars. I'm Michael Bumpers with Alex Brink. It's time now for our play breakdown. This was a crucial play in the game. It's 10-7 in the third quarter, 2nd and 5. You need a big play, and the Cougs delivered with a 46-yard touchdown. When I saw this play, B, I started really believing. I'm like, these guys really might have a chance. If you're able to break off runs like this down south against Ole Miss, you might have a chance. What do you see?
Well, you're right about a big moment. If you remember, Bump, going back to kind of the sequence before halftime, Ole Miss is able to tie together a late touchdown right before a half. Cougs were in control the whole first half, 7-3. Ole Miss gets some momentum, scoring going into halftime to go up 10-7. And I remember being in the booth kind of saying, this is an important drive coming out of half to see how Washington State was going to respond. And boy, did they ever with this Max Voorhees touchdown run. And Bump, I remember seeing it live and thinking how fast I thought Max Voorhees was compared to everybody else on the field, which is surprising when you're playing a top 5 SEC team like Ole Miss. But man, what great execution from the Washington State offensive line and Voorhees. You see that trip set, tight end backside. They're just trying to run outside zone. And actually, it looks like it's going to get blown up at the start, right? The defensive tackle crosses center Brock Dew's face. But this is one thing that Washington State's offensive line did great all night. They kind of washed that Ole Miss defensive line wherever they wanted to go and then allowed the backs to make cuts off of that. You see Dew just kind of wash the defensive tackle by. Voorhees makes a cut from right to left, kind of one cut and go like I talked about earlier, his ability to be decisive. And then the backside, left guard, left tackle really make this play bump. They combo the defensive end, climb to the linebacker. That gives just enough of a seam for Voorhees to hit at full speed. And look what happens when you hit at full speed, Bump. Good things happen. Safety takes a terrible angle, and Voorhees is off to the races.
Yeah, there's nothing like a good zone block, man. And timing is everything. You talk about that left side and the combo blocks. It's a feel type of thing, right? You combo, you climb to that linebacker, and now it's up to your running back to make your lineman right. All right, the lineman's job, you just get on the bodies and get to where you're supposed to be. The running backs will help influence the flow of those linebackers as well. You mentioned center doing a great job. The defensive line shifts last second, and I love the way that they handled that as well. And then the rest is just, man, the young man getting his knees up, getting down the sideline and making a big run. What was the stadium like when that went down? I know that the Cougs were loud, but was Ole Miss stunned?
They were stunned, man. I mean, look, this is a crowd. The stadium holds 67,000. There was probably 3,000 or 4,000 Coug fans. And then, there was less than 60,000 in that stadium from Ole Miss. I mean, they actually talked about it a little bit on you saw it in reports and social media, how they were surprised that the stadium wasn't full. They were disappointed in their student section. Lane Kiffin made some comments after the game about that. But, it was dead silent. Part of this is, you see how Voorhees is able to pull away down the sideline? I do not think in any capacity that the Ole Miss team or the Ole Miss fan base thought that Washington State could match up athletically with the Rebels. And all night we saw instances of Washington State running with Ole Miss defenders, right? Being physical with Ole Miss with Ole Miss players. And it did not feel at any point like Washington State was out of place on that football field. And Bump, for all the talk about realignment and, we're going to go to the Super League of the top 40 teams and Washington State and Oregon State are going to get left behind and they don't deserve to be Power 5. You know what? This is a great example of why Washington State deserves to be Power 5. Absolutely dominated this play. Voorhees looks like the fastest player on the field, and Washington State all night looked like they could contend with a top 5 football team.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest part for me as well, just the personnel. How are you going to match up with 4 and 5 stars over there? Down south, they're bigger, faster, and stronger. So, yes, that was a great example of just what Washington State is capable of. A big play, 46 yards. That doesn't happen on accident, man. 46 yards, that's a lot of time for someone to try to run you down. But when you execute, when your angles are on point in the run game, when your running back sets things up, big plays like this happen. Big turning point, man. I was actually at the CW studios on set watching this on a small screen in the corner in between commercial breaks, going crazy, getting hyped for our Cougs. So it was fun to watch.
I love that. And I got to give a lot of credit to Danny Freund, the offensive coordinator, because I think he's made a pretty concerted effort, Bump, to switch to a more straight-up zone blocking scheme the last few games, and it's really paid off. Remember early in the year, a lot of kind of guard tackle counters, a lot of pulling offensive linemen and tight ends, and I think those are too slow developing, right? Running backs get caught in the backfield, chopping their feet, and I think that's a big reason the run game wasn't super consistent. Now they've moved to this more straight-up zone blocking, let athletes be athletes and make plays. I'm excited to talk to Danny Freund when we come back here on Talkin Cougars. This segment is brought to you by Flat Stick Pub, local craft beer, mini golf, and old school fun. All right, back here on Talkin Cougars, super excited to be joined by offensive coordinator Danny Freund. Danny, we've talked to you once already this season. Obviously now we're into the heat of things, coming off a tough loss at Ole Miss, but Boy, I tell you what, it feels like the offense has kind of caught its stride in the last few weeks, particularly in the running game.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the result wasn't what we wanted down there in Oxford, but we really were proud of the guys. The effort was there. Execution wise, did some good things against a good defense. But yeah, we're trying to be more balanced, and obviously like Kirby busts the long run, but even I think like the level of physicality and efforts in the run game is improving, and just kind of our guys up front understanding what we're supposed to do and getting a hat on a hat. And really trying to simplify some things for the guys and give them concepts that we can obviously play fast with, but definitely not, you know, I think it's something that's going to continue to improve, and we have to continue to improve it. But feel like we're getting better and improving as we go here throughout the season, and that's really what we talk to the guys about all the time. Just improving every day, continuing to chase our best, and obviously want to be playing our best football here down the stretch as we move into November.
And just specifically with the running game, are there things schematically you feel like you're doing differently, or play calling wise, maybe as opposed to early in the year, or is it simply kind of an execution issue like you're talking about?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of a little bit of everything, like you said. I think obviously having Zevi in there, as far as the RPO game and him making really good decisions, and then the element of him being able to run and be mobile, whether it's the quarterback run stuff or just scrambles or just holding the backside on some zone reads, just kind of gives an element to the defense that they have to think about. So I think that has helped. Obviously, I think Kirby and Angel, Leo, and Maxwell have kind of continued to improve. And up front, I think those guys have worked really hard in the last 3-4 weeks at practice to develop some consistency and just kind of get back to the basics. So I think from an offensive line standpoint, they're starting to gel a little bit more. And we're playing, tough opponents, obviously, but our guys are up for the challenge every single week. And I think excited to see the development, and just obviously Brock at center. His leadership's been great with the guys up front. But, you throw the tight ends in there. I think, Trey Lechner and Mola and that group. You watch the game against Ole Miss, their physicality and their effort stood out as well. So I think it's a combination of everything, but we obviously want to continue to improve it and build on what we've done.
And speaking on Zevi, I mean, since we last talked, he's kind of become QB1, so to speak. You mentioned in our first conversation about the depth in that quarterback room, whether it was Jackson Potter or Zevi or Doug's or, really anybody, Johnny Shepard, like you kind of knew you had, 3 or 4 guys that could do it. And, now with Zevi in the mix and 3 games under his belt, what is it about his play that you've liked so far?
Yeah, I mean, the last 2 games especially, he's taken care of the football and been a really good decision maker. I think the toughness really stands out. His ability to hang in there and take hits, whether it's in the pocket or outside the pocket in the QB run game. I think there's a lot of poise and a lot of urgency that he brings as a senior quarterback, getting a first opportunity to start here at Washington State. Uh, how he comes to practice every day, his preparation, I think elevates the guys around him. There's a certain it factor that I think quarterbacks have to have. And when he's been in there for us, you've seen that. You could feel it, when he was able to take over the starting job. And we're excited about how he's played. I think when you go to Ole Miss and you have that type of performance, and obviously the week before against Colorado State, and even just coming in against Washington and playing against that defense the way he did, really excited about where he's at right now. And he knows like he needs to continue to play that way and elevate the guys around him. But I think, you talk about just the intangibles that he has, the leadership, the consistency with which he prepares and leads the guys. And I think there's an edge to him. Like he plays a game with a little bit of, a chip on his shoulder, which as a coach, I love it. And I think it's almost borders on overconfidence, but I think we need that at times. And I think he pushes everybody in the building. And obviously we're going to go as he goes here down the stretch. So I think obviously glad he's our starter and really fired up for him as a person and looking forward to this weekend.
Yeah, well, speaking from a player who played with a massive chip on his shoulder myself, I can appreciate that and certainly love what we're seeing from Zevi. So when we come back, we'll dive in a little bit more with Coach Freund on maybe what to expect in this week's matchup versus the Virginia Cavaliers.
This segment is brought to you by Valley GMC. See you in the Valley.
All right, back here on Talking Cougars, joined by offense coordinator Danny Freund. Coach, you talked obviously about the game at Ole Miss, a little bit about Zevi, and as we look ahead, you got a tough matchup coming up against the Virginia Cavaliers out in Virginia and Charlottesville. I'm sure it's going to be another tough matchup. I just wonder, as I think about as you guys move through this season, I've seen a lot as when it comes to the play calling, right? The evolution. There was a really unique play. The first touchdown pass against Ole Miss. It was Julian Duggar's in the game. He hands it off to Zevi. Zevi ends up rolling out, throwing the touchdown pass to Landon Wright. For you as an offensive play caller, is that part of the game, this kind of constant evolution of your offense?
Yeah, I think really every week is kind of a new challenge to try to go 1-0 and obviously play the defense that you're playing against. And we knew going into a game like that, we might have to carry some unique stuff. That's a play that we've been working on for 3, 4, 5 weeks. Obviously, like had it up against Washington and some other teams, but part of it too is just kind of the situation. We knew if we get into the high red zone, there's a good chance that play could come out in that area. And we did want to get it on the left hash so that Zevi could throw it. If it was on the right hash, it probably would have been reversed because Duggar's a lefty. But sometimes these plays are like more the players making plays over the play call. Obviously, like we drop every play to have success. We don't draw plays to not work. But on that particular play, I think really it was Zevi just making a great football play. He had pressure in his face from the D end of the field. We didn't really practice that throw going to the post. It was actually supposed to go to Josh on the wheel, but they kind of busted in cover 3 and they cut the post loose. And give credit to our quarterback for having the awareness and in a split second to be able to find that with a guy right in his face, take a hit, make a great throw, and we got guys celebrating all over the field. It was a really cool moment. Obviously, some of the guys here in the past have done some 2 quarterback stuff with Cam Ward and John Mateer and whether it was Morris or Arbuckle, just like the offensive innovation. So just continuing to build on that. But obviously, like we want to run plays that work, but we feel like there are certain times that we have to give defenses things to think about. And, obviously you want to have success, and that one worked. And we'll continue to build on that.
Yeah, that was a cool one. What was it like in the box? I got to imagine the box from up top. You kind of see it unfold, and it's like one of those oh shoot moments, and then it happens. You know what I mean?
Well, we got some leakage on the left side, like because it's a naked play, so you're not expecting any pressure from the side you're sending the line to. But they obviously are super talented up front, so their guy got through. Brock was able to get a piece of him. The DN doesn't really bite on the naked, so he kind of shows in Zevi's face. So it's like, oh my god! And then obviously he's able to find a guy wide open in the end zone, and we're, those moments are pretty cool, especially in an environment like that. College football is special. These guys put in so much work throughout the week. The coaches put in so much work. So when you are able to have that success, I think there's, the coaches are like kids up there in the box sometimes. Like we're celebrating, high-fiving, and kind of have to regain our composure too. But that's what it's all about. We get to coach this game and be around these kids, and they work their butts off. And, college football is special, and we're able to kind of enjoy it with them as well.
Yeah, what a roller coaster of emotions. I can only imagine. That's pretty cool, man. So looking at this Cavalier team that you're playing this weekend, right? Another long road trip, but a 4-1 team with a solid defense. What do you see from that group on film?
Yeah, I think the one thing that we've talked about this week is how hard they play. I think their D-line is the strength of their defense. Kind of similar to last week with Ole Miss, but they have a lot of depth up front. They're a senior heavy team, so like all 4 of their D linemen that are listed as starters are seniors or grad transfers. They've got some veteran guys at linebacker and in the back end. So the thing that stood out to me was how hard they play, the effort with which they get to the ball and hit you. They were able to create a couple turnovers against Louisville in their last game and score touchdowns off those. So really a tough challenge for us. I don't think we'll be catching them off guard after last week. They're coming off a buys, and it's a 6:30 homecoming game for them. So really what it's going to take from us is obviously we have to have a great week of prep, and then just get our guys emotionally ready and physically ready for a tough ranked opponent on the road. But I think our performance last week gives us confidence. We have to continue to perform at a high level. But yes, there'll be some challenges their defense presents just from a speed standpoint and how they are up front. But we feel good about our guys and the plan going in, and we'll continue to rep it and get ready to go.
When you think about your offensive group, the running game's gotten a lot of headlines the last few weeks. Breaking the 100-yard mark, finding some consistency. Obviously, Zevi, has been really solid, like you alluded to, for a couple weeks. A group to me that I don't know if they're unsung, but that keeps standing out week in and week out is that receiver group. It seems like it's a kind of a different person maybe every week that is making plays. Everybody contributes. Last week it was Tony Freeman. But you saw Landon Wright catch the touchdown. Just in general, when you think about the depth of that group and maybe some of the leadership there, what have you liked from that receiver crew so far this year?
Yeah, I think Coach Menich does an awesome job. He does a great job with that room, and I think the biggest thing is the leadership from Josh and T Free, a couple older guys that have been here, been in the program, and you just watch the way they prepare and the way they practice. Like, I think the best players on game day are the best practice players, and you see that consistency with their just fundamentals at practice, how they detail their routes, how hard they compete every day at practice. It shows up on game day. So been really pleased with those two guys, and then obviously like just a deep room, and I think that's created competition. Landon scored last week. Devin's been in there a little bit. Leon Neal with a huge slot fade on the sideline, catching that ball. Jeremiah Noga, BG. Like there's just it's a large, it's a deep group, and we're trying to figure. Even we got Mac in that last game, and he's playing with great effort. So I think the biggest thing is just the improvement every week, and just the trust that they've developed with Zevi. Those guys stay after practice and throw with the quarterbacks, and Zevi's got those guys in there doing extra walkthroughs, and just really the attention to detail, the focus, and the urgency to really improve and get better. I think the process of everything has shown up on game day. So that's what I think we've been most proud of as coaches, is just the intent and the effort with which they're preparing every week and every day. And then it's fun to be around them when they do have success, because that's why we're here. So yeah, I think it's a deeper group. Carter Paps was injured. Hopefully we get him back at some point here soon. But just a group that's continued to work and excited about their progress.
Well, we've definitely seen the results on the field the last few weeks. Like you said, it seems like steady improvement. We sure hope to see it again this weekend against Virginia. Coach, I appreciate the time. Good luck this weekend.
I appreciate you guys. Thanks, Alex.
We'll be back on Talkin' Cougars.
Welcome back to Talking Cougars. As always, I'm Michael Bumpus with my quarterback, Alex Brink. It's time to break down the Virginia Cavaliers. 2 back-to-back overtime wins, beat Florida State, then you beat Louisville. This team is battle-tested. When I look at this offense, it's a pro-style type of offense. You'll get some shotgun. You'll get some under center. They got a few running backs trying to get it done back there as well. There's some speed in the backfield. I think this will be another test for this Washington State defense. But something they can handle after going off of last week, going out to Ole Miss. You would think that they match up well with these guys, but it will be a test. Virginia is one of those sneaky teams this year that no one was really talking about, but you start stacking these wins, you start making plays, you build a reputation.
Yeah, it's interesting, Bump. We don't see a lot of the ACC teams right on the West Coast, and you don't pay attention to them in a normal year, right? At least I don't, because of so much time spent in the Pac and on kind of west of the Rockies. Spending a little time looking at this Virginia team, you see the head coach Tony Elliott in his 4th season. He's had 3 seasons where he's really been building this program, right? They haven't been over 5 wins. And now all of a sudden he's got a breakout season at 5-1, and really looking to take this Cav program to the next level. A great quarterback in Chandler Morris, who's battle tested for sure. You look at Tony Elliott's resume. I mean, he's a Dabo guy, Bump. He was at Clemson forever, won 2 national titles as the offensive coordinator with guys like Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne, right? Like that group of Clemson offense that we have come to know as being, some really elite offensive football. You talked about the offensive firepower for the Virginia Cavalier team. Morris, I mentioned, he started out at Arkansas with his dad, Chad Morris, a longtime coach, goes to TCU, and last stop was at North Texas with Eric Morris, who we just saw earlier in the year. He was slinging it in the air raid with Morris, and now he ends up in Virginia, and he is really efficient and a pretty good athlete as well. He's not going to be like Trinidad Chambliss, but he can break you down with his legs. So, the challenge is going to be for Washington State. 1, can you contain Morris? But 2, he's a really gifted passer, so you're going to have to match up downfield on these Cavalier wide receivers.
Yeah, you got to match up, and you got Brown in the backfield as well, who has some speed. It's a real balanced team, but they're a sneaky good team. I don't think they're sneaky anymore. Obviously, they're ranked number 18. But when I watch film with these guys, it's all about the fundamentals, man. The quarterback play is sharp. Running backs hit the gap when they're supposed to hit. Receivers have great route runners on the outside. This is going to be a challenge, and I think the Cougs are up for the challenge. You travel down to Mississippi. Let's see if you can take the golf bag and the game to Virginia. Let's focus on their defense now. The defense, it's a 4-2-5. They're going to play a lot of too-high defense. It's really straight up. Like, what you see is what you get. There's not going to be exotic stunts on the defensive line. Just like the offense, it's more just about playing fundamental football. Last week, this defense scored 2 touchdowns. One was a crazy interception, quarterback falling to the ground, sidearm throws the football, and the other one was just a fumble recovery. So that's 14 points on the board that they got defensively. But I just see a straight up 2 high. They will roll the safety down to a 1 high, just basic defense.
Yeah, you talked about the turnovers. You know, like I watched that Louisville game, and they got a couple gifts in all honesty, right? Louisville's going to score on their first possession, have a 4th and 1. They toss it to the running back, and the guy just drops it on the ground, and it bounces right to the defender, scoop and score, right, to go up 7-0, and then a later interception. You know, so it's a defense, like you said, that's solid. I really like the second level guys. The linebackers run sideline to sideline. On the defensive line, it's going to look a little bit like Ole Miss bump, where they'll kind of line up in that 4-down front, and then they'll drop kind of a buck defensive end into coverage. They'll slant into a 3-down rush. I think it leans towards Washington State being able to run the football again. There's some soft edges, like you saw against Ole Miss, some abilities to kind of push the edge and get to the outside with a guy like Kirby Voorhees. So I like the matchup defensively. You're going to have to be really efficient. It's the same thing we talked about last week. The reason Washington State was in the game against Ole Miss was because offensively they protected the football. Zevi was really good in his decision making, and in general, the backs were good with the ball, other than Voorhees late in the game on the direct snap fumble. That's the key to me. You cannot turn the ball over on the road. If you don't do that, you give yourself a chance, going out to a tough opponent like Virginia.
Yeah, and I really think that you can take advantage of these safeties too. These safeties want to make plays in the run game. They want to get downhill. And if you're able to establish the run like you did against Ole Miss, that's going to open up Freeman down the seam and other players on the outside to make big plays. So, no, I'm encouraged. I think this is going to be a good matchup. My buddy Ray Roberts, who's a Virginia great over there, drafted top 10 in like the 93 draft, says he's nervous that they're talking about the Cougs. They're worried about the Cougs. Before last week, he said they thought it was going to be a walk in the park. So the Cougs developing a reputation of their own. Now it's time to prove that you can get a big win against a ranked team.
I think the biggest thing for Washington State is they've improved what feels like each week, right? They've gotten a little bit better. Jimmy Rogers really preaching a lot of the same things. You can tell he's focusing on tackling on defense. Offensively, he really wants to continue to build that running game, and I feel like each of those pieces has continued to get better. One thing that will be interesting bump for Washington State is they were down at Ole Miss. It was a physical game. It was hot, guys cramping, guys getting a little nicked up. How healthy is Washington State, and how much do they have in their legs going back-to-back road trips? That's something that I'm really looking forward to.
Hey, get her done, Cougs. All right, when we get back, we'll give you a mid-season reality check. We'll break down the Cougs and see where they are at this point. That's next on Talkin' Cougars.
Well, obviously, looking back at the film, I thought our guys played extremely hard. They competed. They were engaged throughout the game. We just were a couple plays short here and there throughout the game, plays that we feel like we could have made, we just didn't. And we'll rebuttal just the showing that we had as far as with our own fans that came out, that supported. I thought that was awesome. Our players felt that. I think the more we can get closer to that every single game, home or away, it means a lot to the players. The players work extremely hard. And obviously, we have another challenge this week, a really good Virginia team that has weapons all over the field, really explosive on the perimeter, great running back, great quarterback. And this week will be a challenge just as much as last week. And we got to come out and play hard and clean up some of the things that we didn't execute as well last week to have a shot in this game.
I think you just gotta trust one another. Like, that's one of the biggest things. Like, when you have a group of guys that really haven't played with each other, just trusting one another, and like you just see it. Like, you see, like, you get it, you built a bit. Like, you've been through it, like through fall camp, been in the summer, like, and this way, like you go through the season. Like, it's just trust.
I think rotating helps a lot. We're fresher those 3-4 plays to give it our all instead of, getting tired and out on drives, especially against tempo teams. So I think it helps keep us fresh and, ready to go at all times.
It's going to be a night game. They just watched us play Ole Miss that way. They'll be ready. We're not sneaking up on anybody as far as how hard we play. Because I think in all of our games, you'll see our guys fly around. It's been a mishap of mistakes or technique things here or there. But it hasn't been just complete debacles. It's just been guys at times not making a play. So, yeah, I'm excited to go out there.
Back here on Talkin' Cougars, Season 3, Episode 8. I'm Alex Brink, joined by former Washington State wide receiver Michael Bumpus. Bump, we got to take a look at where this team is at in the big picture. 3-3 off a tough loss at number 4, Ole Miss. But as Jimmy Rogers alluded to, you can't let that idea of a close loss kind of seep into your thinking and give you a letdown. He wants this team to keep improving and getting better. Everybody from the outside says how great a game it was. This team's going on the road to a top 20 Virginia team. As you look at this group and you think about the season ahead and what they've accomplished so far, where do you think this team is at?
It's been a weird year, right? You come out against Idaho and you don't have the greatest performance. What do you put up, like 13 points or something like that? Then you play San Diego State. You're feeling better about yourself. Okay, you're making progress. You go to North Texas, you get blown out. And then you put up a fight against a good University of Washington team. It's just been up and downs with this team. Then you bounce back and you beat Colorado State 20-13. Like, we've had a little bit of everything with this team. I think what we're missing is just consistency and just buying into who you are, your identity. You mentioned that offensively they changed into just a downhill type of zone team. And I think that at this point of the season, you have enough data on your team. You've been at practice with your boys. You're watching film. You should know who you want to be offensively. So hopefully they have figured some things out. But if I had to describe this year so far, it'd just be an up and down type of year. But right now, it feels like you're on the up. Again, we don't pat yourself on the back for a loss, but at least you see the identity and who they want to be offensively and defensively. So yeah, I would describe it as up and down, man. Got some work to do, but you see the direction they're moving.
When you kind of play the what-if game, in that what if Zevi Eckhouse was a starting quarterback from week 1, I don't know that it would change the wins and losses so much, but would it maybe give this team a little bit different vibe? Because like you said, the Idaho game really felt like Cougs stole one there, not very consistent, have a really good performance against San Diego State, and then that North Texas game, I think that's the one that obviously leaves a little bit to be desired for everybody. And, you just don't know. Now, when Zevi takes over, this team immediately looks different offensively, more consistent, a little more fight in them. And, defensively, the North Texas game is a little bit of a wash because they had so many possessions where they were basically inside their own 25 after turnovers that it's hard to tell, and like you said, kind of got run out late against UW. So, the defense overall, in my opinion, has actually played really well this season. And so this week is going to be a good indication, I think, of where this team is at, because now they've got the identity of who they are offensively. Defensively, I think they've settled into some of those schemes. The biggest thing is the look ahead. This game at Virginia is a chance on a national stage to beat a ranked opponent. That's huge. But then you keep moving forward. You're 3-3 right now. The goal is to get to a bowl game, right? So you got to get to 6 wins. You look at the rest of the schedule. You got 2 games against Oregon State. The first one down in Corvallis, the second one back in Pullman. That team's obviously struggling mightily. And then you've got Toledo before that at home as you come off this Virginia trip, plus Louisiana Tech. You got some opportunities in that trip out to James Madison. I see the opportunity for 3 wins, maybe 4 in there after this Virginia game. So this Virginia game, I think, goes a long way in what kind of season, if it could be really special for Washington State if they can get a win out there in Charlottesville.
Yeah, there's some opportunity. Unfortunately, you're hoping that you beat up on your fellow Pac-2 squad in Oregon State who is in disarray. That's been some bad football being played over there. But now it's about just the letdowns. You play up to your competition in Virginia, and you stay at that level. You surpass that level when you play these teams like Toledo and Oregon State or whatnot. So it's about taking care of business at this point. You set yourself up, honestly. There's been some bad times, a lot of points being scored, and you mentioned just the struggles at North Texas. But you've set yourself up to check a box. And I think it's important that Jimmy, his first year, him and his squad, his coaching staff, gets this team to a bowl game. But as you know, it's one game at a time. It starts with Virginia, but there's some opportunity there.
I just look at that Ole Miss game, Bump. I mean, look, if they play the way they played on offense and defense, like they played at Ole Miss, they're going to beat a lot of football teams on the rest of this schedule. And so they've got to really embrace that and own that and take the good with it, learn from the bad. And I think that gives them a chance to do some pretty special things down the stretch. When we come back, we're going to put our predictions on the upcoming game against Virginia.
What's up, Talking Cougars? I'm Michael Bumpus with Alex Brink. The Cougs win if they are 17-point underdogs going to Virginia. Off camera, me and Brink were talking about this. This is crazy, but you know what? You got to prove it. You got to show up. So I'll start it off. The Cougs win if Zevi continues to take care of the football. 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He's dynamic in the backfield, does a great job of extending plays. Sometimes you need your quarterback just to make the play. It might not be on time, it might not look pretty, but he has that capability in him. I'm looking at the QB. If you can take care of the football, as you know, B, you have a chance to win these ball games. I'm starting with Zevi.
I like that. For me, it's the defense. If the defense can force 1 or more turnovers against this Virginia Cavaliers offense, I believe that's an indication that they're going to win this football game. We talk about that Cavs offense led by Chandler Morris, the veteran quarterback. It can be really explosive. It can be. But there's also shown to be some inconsistencies. And I think Washington State's defense has the team speed and kind of the tenacity to rally to the football and cause some real problems for this offense. Look, the running backs are good, for sure, for Virginia. They're very productive. But they are not Kejuan Lacey, right? They are certainly not the backs from UW. This is an opportunity for Washington State's defense to step up and make a statement and lead the way, kind of like they did against San Diego State, right? Remember the safety bump? They forced a safety, they got a turnover, and that really led to the floodgates getting open. Let's see if that Washington State defense can force a turnover and get the offense going.
It's almost like, you know, when you have those moments in a game to where a big play happens and you go in, you're already prepared, you believe that you can play, but then reality sets in. We can make plays against these guys. We can travel. I think that happened in Ole Miss with that 46-yard run, and other moments too. But once that moment happens with Virginia, you got to lock in and seize it. So it's going to have to be a balanced game. Like you mentioned, defensively, you got to be on point. Offensively, run the football, make a couple big plays, and you never really know. And I'm so happy I'm working this game. I'll be on pre-halftime and post-game for this show in the studios for CW. So finally, I get to cover a Coug game, and it's a big one.
Yeah, I'll be there too. So thank you all for joining us. That's a wrap on Talkin' Cougars, Episode 8. I'm Alex Brink. You can find me on X at AlexBrink10. I will be on the road for this game as well, flying across the country, going to D.C. first, Bump, if you can believe it, and then driving down. It's the only way to get to Charlottesville. And I'll be there with Jessamine McIntyre and Chris King to check this one out, hopefully seeing a Coug win.
And I'm Michael Bumpus. Like I said, I'll be in the studios with CW, breaking this whole thing down, pre-halftime and post-game show. Monday Night Football for the Seahawks, so I'm not working on Sunday. I'll be working on Monday. Catch me during the week. Bumpus Station Show 10 to 2. That's been Talking Cougars. See you next time.